How did Reddit save someone's life?
That's what you think, Tom. Welcome to that second ever episode hijack of everything you didn't need to know about. Hello, welcome back to everything you didn't need to know about. Welcome to a very special episode. We have hijacked the episode and we are going to surprise one of the four fabulous fact friends with a surprise topic. That person is Mr. Thom Adams.
Me, hello.
Now, throughout the show, Thom has shown an affinity for two things. One, loving sports, and two, loving Nazis. So we have combined those today, and we are talking about the 1936 Berlin Olympic. Of course, at the end of this episode, we'll be voting on our favorite fact, and whoever has the best fact of the day will take the prize. Good luck, Thom. You didn't prepare for this.
He's been preparing his whole life for this.
Turns out I was there.
Whoa, that'd be amazing. First thing I found out that blew my mind, the 36 Berlin Olympics was the first opening ceremony. The first big
Olympic torch race.
Exactly, yeah, torch race as well.
I'm used to the torch just being like, they take it from, I remember the 2012 Olympics and I feel like they took it from like Deptford to Stratford. Like it wasn't that great. But the one, to give the Nazis their credit, they started in Olympia in Greece and ran all the way to Germany through 7 countries that Hitler would then invade in reverse on his way to trying to take over Europe.
And every year they take it from Olympia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, every single year.
Tune in for that part of the Olympics, obviously.
So 2 things. Is it really a race? Like, it's not really they're not going for speed. Secondly, should we be talking about race?
Thom, what are your thoughts on the 1936 Berlin Olympics?
I mean, honestly, not the greatest year for the Olympics when you think about it, but great year for Jesse Owens, who his shoes were made by Adidas.
I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah, by Adolf Eddie Dassler.
So Jesse Owens was an American runner. He was black. He came over and he was the absolute star of the Olympics. Everyone got behind him. He came over on a boat from the USA, which was an absolute plow fest. All these American athletes from all walks of life, it wasn't segregated. So black people were mixing with white people the first time ever on this boat for 10 days. They're all athletes at the height of their physical prowess and perfection. And so they just banged 24/7 on this boat. Oh my God.
Is that a fact or is that something you've made up?
That's 100% true.
It makes a lot of sense though, because there's only so much cardio you can do on a boat. So
it's a good way to get in your weight training as well, depending on who your partner is.
Oh yeah.
When did they let women into the Olympics? Tell me it's pre-1936.
No, way later.
Definitely pre-1936.
But Kenny, that's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just unlikely to be a representative slant of the.
I'm a little bit disturbed by how upset Kenny is by this.
Yeah.
Kenny, it's okay.
Especially the original Olympic Games were just a bunch of naked men wrestling each other for hours and hours.
That's what Kenny wants it to go back to.
But that's the way that the Olympics should be. Like, imagine all the sports, particularly the Winter Olympics.
But it wasn't just only men doing the sports. It was also only men watching the sports. So you could be executed if you were found to be female in the crowd, right?
To be clear, this is the classical Olympics, not the 1936 Olympics.
Okay, good.
Yeah. You guys have got me stretching up my my NCA level 1 history lessons, which did feature the 1936 Berlin Olympics, specifically Hitler leaving in a huff on his car because too many black people won.
I don't think that's true. I think there's a bit of a myth about that. People say that that Hitler famously refused to shake hands with Jesse Owens, but he actually started shaking hands with everyone. And then I just realized I'm defending Hitler. I'm going to stop doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a prick. I hate that guy.
Sam. He doesn't need your help.
Jesse Owens himself said that Hitler gave him a nice, sup wave. Didn't come and shake his hand, but was like, hey, how's it going? Speaking of Jesse Owens, his 4th gold medal could be argued to be that he won it because of anti-Semitism. Because America had 2 Jewish American athletes on their relay team.
I think one of them was called Samuel Stoller. And Samuel is my name.
So it was Marty Glickman and Sam Stoller. And they were bumped at the last minute. They went over on the ship on the Bangfest with everyone else, and then but they were
The
only
HMS Bangfest.
HMS Bangfest. They was
It's
only
probably
supposed to be
USS.
competing-
Oh, yeah.
They're only supposed to be competing in the relay, and they got bumped at the last minute and replaced by Jesse Owens and the other very, very fast black male athlete, Ralph Metcalf,
Yeah.
who was known as the fastest man in the world in 1934 and 1935, which makes me wonder why he wasn't on the relay team already.
Yeah.
So they brought these two American Jewish runners over and then never used them, but they used black guys instead, who then helped win the race. So either way, you're defeating Hitler's Aryan ideals, which is yay.
And part of the reason that black athletes from America were going to go over, they knew all this horrible stuff was happening with all the Jewish population and heaps of other people as well.
Kristallnacht had already happened, and
Yeah, but it was such a big propaganda thing to get people over there. And but this is sort of a horrible state of affairs for what was happening in America as well, because all the black athletes were like, well, yeah, but you do all that stuff to us here, so of course we'll go over to Germany. It's going to be just like it is back in America anyway, which is pretty
The
grim.
propaganda extended to explicit directions to the populace to treat especially African American athletes really, really well. And I think more than one athlete came back and was like, we're treated so much better in Germany than we are in America. And Jesse Owens said Hitler treated him better than FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Yeah.
He said the president didn't even send a telegram, which is pretty shitty. He was the highest, like the most decorated athlete of all at that Olympic Games. He won 4 gold medals, which is pretty astounding.
Yeah. But one of the things I love about the opening ceremony is that, it was the first time they had everyone there. They had the big parades, which were quite Nazi-like, and then they had everyone waving their swastika flags, which was also quite Nazi-like. The man ran in with the Olympic torch and lit it, and it was a big hoo-ha, and it was great. When they lit it, they released 20,000 pigeons into the sky. And at which point they also fired cannons into the sky, and the cannons scared the birds, and they shat all over the athletes in the stadium. It was
I thought this was
incredible.
going to end with roast pigeon for everyone, so that's actually a better outcome than what I was expecting.
But so in 1936, surely one of the sports was pigeon shooting, so that seems fair.
do you know the other thing the athletes did is they all marched into the stadium?
Oh, is this the Olympic salute?
Yes, this is the Olympic salute, but because they were in Germany, it was slightly modified. The Olympic salute, which was used at the Olympics from its reincarnation by Coubertin in the early
1928.
1900s. That was a thing before the Nazis got big, and athletes would give the Olympic salute to each other, and it looks just like the Nazi salute, except with the opposite hand. And
apparently it's also slightly higher. The angle of your arm is, I'm trying to demonstrate in a way that doesn't in any way mimic the
So
gesture.
apart from 4 teams, one of which was the US, one of which was the Philippines, and I've forgotten the other 2, who refused to do the Nazi salute, all the others did what could be interpreted as the Nazi or the Olympic salute to Hitler as they marched past him into the stadium.
Interestingly, the French team at the Winter Olympics in 1948 also did the Olympic salute. It was officially
Jesus
retired
Christ.
sometime between the 1936 Olympics and was it the 44 Olympics was the next one?
No, it wouldn't have been until 48. People were busy in 44.
Everyone went on holiday.
Yeah.
But interestingly, apparently in the 1928 Olympic posters, you can see people doing the Olympic salute because it was just a variation of the Roman salute, and it was
those
not
Nazis ruining all of our nice salutes and everything else.
The Redemption Games. So when Munich hosted the Olympic Games in 1972, they also decided to innovate. So they had the first named Olympic mascot, which was a dachshund called Waldy.
Waldy.
I just really like that. The Nazis introduced the Olympic relay and the torch and the saluting Nazi Hitler people, and then the 1972 ones they were like dachshund.
And I love how the 1972 ones went off without a hitch as well.
Oh, let us not
let's
speak
not
of
get
that.
into
They were called the Cheerful Games.
Were they actually?
That was their official slogan. They were called
Jesus.
the Cheerful Games.
There's been kind of a history of kind of weird logos and weird mascot. The logo for the 1936 Olympics was a bell. But has anyone seen
Was it
the
not
logo
just a
for
swastika? I've seen a lot of swastikas in the pictures of it.
Yeah, I guess they figured it was overkill. Too many Hindu symbology, just kind of.
That then became not such an issue for them.
But has anyone seen the 1920 the London Olympics logo?
Yes, and
So
I
if you
believe I know what you're.
Yep, pull it up,
Which-
and it looks like the
Lisa Simpson.
Lisa
Lisa
Simpson giving a blowjob.
I was quite happy to hear the name of the Dachshund because you could hide it around your house and be like, "Where's Volder?"
What is Voldy?
What's the Valdi?
But the best mascot from any Olympics was the Sydney Olympics, and it wasn't the official ones. Do you guys remember the Fat AssWombat?
Don't all wombats kind of have fat asses? I've never seen a wombat and gone, what a shapely derriere.
There were two amazing comedians, Australian, were in HG, who said the spirit of the Olympics isn't these people who are running really fast and jumping really high and doing all these amazing things, because there's very few of them. The vast number of people involved in the Olympics are watching. And what better represents the spirit of the Olympics for all these people than an indolent, fat ass wombat sitting doing nothing, and
Commentating on how these prime athletes could be better at what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. So the spirit of indolence was represented by, they made thousands of these soft toys, which are of a fat ass wombat, and distributed them. So the Australian swim team, because all the swimming's really early on in the Olympics, used it at all of their medal ceremonies, and they did really well, to the point that they were officially banned from all Olympic venues.
Swim team or the wombats?
The Fat Ass Wombats. But they took on a life of their own, and no one can remember the official mascots, which were a kookaburra or something.
Some shit like that.
But if you ask an Australian about the Fat Ass Wombat, they'll probably pull one out and, oh yeah, we got one of these.
There is a campaign that got started, I think in maybe the 2016 Olympics. I don't know. People were saying we should have like a representative of the normal person. So while you've got like Usain Bolt breaking the record again, you should also have just a regular person with no training,
like
also
a control.
try and run. Yeah, exactly, like a control group.
Pick a Fat Ass Wombat out of the crowd at random.
They get to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. Look under your seat. If you've got a red ticket, then you get to be in the 800-meter sprint.
Yeah, but you'd want it to be one of the shorter events, right? Like, oh, you're in the triathlon. Oh shit.
There's a whole thing around doping in the Olympics as well. You're not allowed to dope. You're not allowed to be drunk when you do archery, which is kind of unfair to me.
That would be so fun.
It'd be so good, but I've heard that there's this idea that rather than us having the Olympics where we don't have doping, we should have an Olympics where everyone can dope, and it's actually an arms race to see who can make the best super soldier, which I guess probably would have started in 1936. Now that I think about it,
yeah. Do you know who came fourth in the women's high jump for Germany?
And Frank.
Eva Braun.
No, to either of those. It was a dude called Herman. Admittedly,
this was out of the crowd.
Admittedly, it was like an intersex person who was raised as a woman, but turned out to then officially be a man a couple of years after the Olympics. And that the reason they got to compete was because the top female high jumper was Jewish and wasn't didn't gain entry to the 36 Olympics. They sent her a letter and were like, sorry, you haven't been picked for the team. And she was like, but I have the record. I'm the highest jumper. Why are you not letting me in? That's because she was
I just
Jewish.
think it's funny that his name is Hair Man, which is like the most male name you could possibly have.
Well, not really, it's her and man.
But isn't Hair the German?
Oh, Mr. Mr. Man.
Mr. Manfred Man.
So there's a culture. I unfortunately can't figure out where it is, but there's a culture where intersex intersex individuals is actually quite high, the proportions, and so you get a lot of boys who are born presenting as women and raised that way, and then basically when they hit puberty, it's like a switch goes and they male genitalia develops and everything like that, and it's just how they are. But yeah, amazing kind of culture society. There's just this kind of weird genetic thing that's going on.
I also just want to point out that one other really exciting thing which happened at the 1936 Berlin Olympics, no one had ever noticed before, but the flags of Haiti and Liechtenstein were the same flag. So the next year, Liechtenstein just wanged a crown on theirs and we're like, yep, different, done, fine.
That's so good. That happened at that Olympics. That's awesome.
Yeah, I just love the idea. They're walking along with their flags. They're like, hey, Oh no, I was like, I thought I was carrying the plate.
And I love that Monaco and Indonesia still haven't cleared that up. We still have the same one. And Poland has just turned theirs upside down.
Doesn't that mean they're in distress?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, that's
Switzerland just followed
1938.
39,
Sorry,
a couple of years later.
39. Yeah.
Everyone talks about the Nazi Olympics and the Hitler Olympics and da-da-da-da. The Olympics, and this is very obvious in hindsight, wasn't awarded to Hitler. It was awarded to the Weimar Republic.
Yeah, that's right.
Which I never thought about. Like, you could award your Olympics to the most forward-thinking, amazing. No, I'm not saying the Weimar Republic was the most forward-thinking, amazing nation, but you could award it because you award it to a country.
Yeah.
And then it could be taken over by a Hitler.
Yeah,
And
so
you'd be like, oh, guts.
they got in 31, and then the Nazis came to power in 33, and then the Olympics were in 36. And in fact, Hitler wasn't even keen on having it. He thought it was a bad idea, and it was Goebbels that said, hey, we could do a real good propaganda thing on this and kind of trick the world into thinking that we're at this great place. And they went round and they cleaned up the whole place. They painted every house along the railroads up into the stadium. I've actually been to Berlin, and I didn't go to the Olympic Stadium. I went to another tourist attraction nearby, which was IKEA. And it was great.
Which would also make a great Olympic sport. Just arranging.
Escape from IKEA without buying anything.
I reckon you could make real Olympics out of the IKEA. How many ice creams can you eat? I reckon that would be a fascinating. Yeah. You could do it endurance, or you could do it by speed.
I'll tell you what, Sweden would clean up.
Did you know that it was the most successful Olympics up to that point? 49 countries attended, which was the most that had ever turned up, despite the fact that they organized a counter Olympics.
Yeah, I read about it in Barcelona, right? Yeah,
so there was going to be the People's Olympiad, which was going to take place in the summer. In Barcelona, where it got slightly detracted by the fact that Spain then had a civil war, so it got cancelled.
Did you guys want to hear some of the weird sports that have been in the Olympics over the years?
Yes, please. And can I say one to start off with?
Go for it.
Tug of war.
Do you recall that joke that I made around how there was pigeon shooting at the Olympics?
Yeah.
That's because there was actually pigeon shooting at the Olympics.
That doesn't surprise me.
Not that one specifically.
Actual pigeon shooting or play pigeon shooting?
Actual live pigeon shooting. There was a head running deer shooting, but they were cardboard cutouts, which is, I guess, a bit different. They had croquet.
Hate to be the ball kid for that, running along with it.
They had flower arranging at some of the Olympics, didn't they?
And poetry as well.
They had nice. I remember this one. They had canoe or kayaking, but it was down they would make their own whitewater rapids, and you have to get down them, which seems kind of.
They
still do that, don't they? They have artificial rapids.
A guy I went to dance school with, his brother was the New Zealander that did that.
New Zealand and Australia do quite well in the rowing sports, mostly because that's the only way you can get here.
Australia should be recruiting all the boat people as blooming future Olympians.
My favorite sport is equestrian, where they just try and see, particularly dressage. So you can just see how much your horse looks like it has lead poisoning.
So I applied for so many cool tickets to the 2012 Olympics, and the only tickets I got was the bloody dressage. And I have never been more bored in my life. The horses do the same thing, all of them, and the horses do all the work very well. I just didn't like it. And then they give the medals to the humans. And I just don't think that's fair. But Camilla Parker Bowles did come and sit in the empty VIP section, and we sang, "Give us a wave, Camilla, give us a wave." And she gave us a wave. And then we sang, "Get your tits out for the boys." Did not get her tits out.
Charles did.
Just going back to the 1936 Olympics, New Zealand, we won 1 gold. It went to a man called Jack Lovelock. He won the 1500 meter, and he went to our university, Otago University. He did medicine. He then later went on to be a doctor in New York. He died very tragically. He fainted onto train tracks and got hit by a train, which is kind of ironic because he was a track runner as well. And then he got run over on the track. However, when he won his gold medal, when you won a gold, you got gifted a sapling, a small oak tree, which he then took back to his old school, Timaru Boys High School, planted it in the ground there, and it's now the big tree that's outside that school, and it's that
so
tree is
cool.
from Hitler. I watched the opening ceremony to prepare for this, and it actually looked like a pretty fun time. It looked kind of chill. It looked pretty much exactly the same as when we had the Commonwealth Games in Christchurch in 76, 74, one of those two. Yeah, and you'd be like, oh yeah, this is cool and fun and exciting. And then you're like, oh no, wait, there's a swastika. Oh, they're doing the Hitler salute. Oh my God. Yeah. You kind of forgot about the fact that this was one of the sort of the biggest pieces of crap in history.
Well, you know who didn't forget was the IOC, because despite the worsening situation in Germany, they awarded them the Winter Olympics for 1940 as well. But Germany got busy invading Poland, so they pulled out in 1939. And so they just didn't have a 1940 Winter Olympics because the host nation had gone, oh, BRB going to invade Poland.
Yeah.
New Zealand is not innocent in the ruining of Olympic Games, though, because at the LA Olympics, there was a huge boycott caused by New Zealand doing things with apartheid South Africa. So little old New Zealand stopped about 60 countries going to the 84 Olympics.
And we did really well in those Olympics.
Yeah.
Because no one else
in Ferguson did really well, right? Like, there was the joke, like, what's the difference between in Ferguson and Australia? And it was 4 gold medals.
You get it right. So you're here with sport.
Yeah,
that's just what we were going
That's
for.
exactly why we chose this.
You guys asked for this.
But I kept being reminded of the Springboks tour, because I was reading about all the controversy with America taking part, because obviously America was trying to stand up and say anti-Semitism is bad, even though they had rampant anti-Semitism in their own back garden. And
it wasn't just in their garden; it was throughout the whole country.
Throughout the whole country.
And it was mostly
the president of the US Olympic Committee, who was a guy called Avery Brundage, which is, I'm sorry, a villain name. He was out there saying, and I quote, "Politics has no place in sport," which I genuinely thought was a stupid aphorism coined for the apartheid Springbok tour protest. But he was the guy who basically convinced the US Olympic Committee to go to the 1936 Berlin Olympics, and then he ended up getting elected president of the International Olympic Committee, and his last games as president of the International Olympic Committee was the 1972 Munich Games.
Whoa. I thought it was really interesting that the guy who actually led the Weimar Republic to apply for the Olympics, he was very strong in their case, turned out to be Jewish. Then a couple of days after the 36 Olympics, he Hitlered himself.
Oh.
Does anyone have a happy cherry fact that we can finish with?
About the 1936 Olympic Games.
Yeah.
Approximately 9 years after the 1936 Olympics, Hitler died.
Yeah, that's the good thing about Hitler.
Were the Olympics responsible? We'll never know, but we'll never know that they weren't responsible.
So unlike in Rio, Athens, all that sort of thing, they're actually still using the infrastructure they put together, because every Olympics they come up with some ridiculous story about, we'll build this thing and it'll be used forever, and then it just falls into ruins and all of the billions have gone into somebody's back pocket. They're still using, like, the Olympia Stadium, Hertha Berlin, the football team play there. They're still using the airport that they built for the Olympics as the main airport in Berlin. So,
a friend of mine lives in the London Olympic Village. That's still used.
I think what you guys are trying to say is that in the Nazis' defense, not all bad.
And just going on from that, Kenny, they did use the Olympic, the torch that the Olympic flag was in. They melted that down and turned it into a tank for World War II. So probably not the greatest thing to
Not a big tank, though, I assume. If it's how big?
Not the little one. The big one.
The big caldera.
Oh, I was trying to finish happy and you guys have ruined it.
I'm going to go back to Waldy the Dachshund. Let's just think about Waldy the Dachshund.
Guys, can I tell you, do you know who was born on the exact same day that the 1936 Berlin Games opened? You'll probably guess. It's Yves Saint Laurent. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but I have a shirt made by him, her, them. I don't know who Yves Saint Laurent is.
Yves Saint Laurent is a man.
Yes.
Or was a man. I think he did now.
He did, but he was born the day that the Berlin Olympics started. And on that cheery note, we should probably wrap up. So we'll go back through and remind everyone of our facts. Mine was that on the Olympic ceremony, they released pigeons who shat over everyone.
Mine was that if you're saluting in any fashion, be very careful how you do it, because it might just look like a Nazi salute.
My fact was that Jesse Owens' shoes that he wore in the 1936 Berlin Olympics were made by Adidas.
And my fact was that America's anti-Semitism helped defeat white supremacy.
All right. If anyone's not voting for their anti-Semitism thing, they're going to look like an absolute prick right now. All right. So on the count of 3, let's point to our favorite fact of the day. And a 1, and a 2, and a 3. Guys, it's everyone. Everyone won. Oh my gosh, it's a Christmas miracle. Congratulations to us all. I think we have to give this one to Mr. Thom Adams, who did remarkably well for something he knows, admittedly, everything about.
Great, thank you, sir. Well, if you've enjoyed the facts that these guys have figured out and that I rapidly Googled while we were chatting, then you should comment them below to let us know your favorite thing. Tell us your defense of Hitler and what the Nazis kind of got right. If you liked it, like and subscribe, post us on your social media channels, and let us know what you'd like us to talk about in the future. Yeah, right. G'day, it's Sports here with Barry Babylon, and today we're going to be talking about shot put. We've got a whole lot of rocks here. We're going to throw them through these windows, and we're going to see if Barry Allen comes and beats the shit out of us. He might. It's her house. All right, here we go. Oh, shit, she's coming out.